Hi, Achim Schloffel, InnerSpace Explorers. Today we'll talk about ratio deco. A lot of requests, and I've been asked a couple of times to do this. So here we are. First of all, we have to figure out what is ratio deco. A lot of people have the misconception that ratio deco is a decompression strategy, which it is not. Ratio deco simply is a simple tool to determine how much deco do I have after a certain profile. And as it is so easy and so simple, a lot of people also call it deco on the fly, because you can do it on your way up basically. So when I said it's not a decompression strategy, the reason behind that is that this ratio is a given thing in given tables. So when you use a broad variety of tables, I mean Old Navy tables, sport diving tables, and so on, you will still find that they are kind of similar. I mean, there's obviously some extreme stuff, but basically when you compare these tables, they're all relatively similar. So for example, when you take, let's say, the no decompression limit for air at 30 meters, no matter what table you use, you will always come up with something between, let's say, 17 and 25 minutes, in that range. So if you say roughly 20 minutes average is a good number, you'll be pretty much in the average of these tables. And then somebody saw these ratios there. And that's what all the concept is based on. And obviously, these ratios are based on certain depths. So let's say, as an example, ratio 1:1. So for every minute of bottom time, I have 1 minute of decompression. That's based on 45 meters. And then there's obviously a ratio 1:2, which is in the 60 to 70 meter range, where you have 2 minutes of decompression for every minute on the bottom, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so the question is, why do you use ratio deco? Why do you not use a computer or program or table? The thing is that ratio deco, first of all, it gives you a lot of flexibility. So when you think about, let's say, a runtime table, a lot of technical divers use runtime tables. So you basically have written down a profile for a dive that you've not done yet. And what happened in a lot of times, that people started their dive and then the table kind of ran them away. So they overstayed their time a little bit on the bottom for whatever reason, something interesting, a little issue, whatever, and suddenly they tried to catch up with their profile, which means they became faster in their ascent and then ran into problems. Or they have to have a ton of backup tables, runtime tables. So then you see people with tables all over their arms. So this one was the original. That doesn't work anymore. So let's try now. That's too long. So how about this? Terrible. So the nice thing on this ratio deco is that you can adjust your profile on the flight because it's so simple. So I go down on that rack, and let's say I planned a 40-minute dive. So I come down, I realize, oops, that rack's not worth 40 minutes of bottom time. I've seen it after 10 minutes. So I don't want to decompress as I would have to decompress if I would stay for 40 minutes. I just want to shorten my decompression profile because I only spent 10 minutes. So if I have to do this with tables, oof. So with ratio deco, that's super simple. I mean, I know the procedure of my ascent, so I know how deep I've been, so I know where's my first deep stop. So from there, I just take out my wet notes and a couple of numbers, and I adjusted my profile to the actual need. So it's more practical, it's closer to the real dive, and it allows me to adjust to my actual needs. So let's have a look at the ISE approach to ratio deco, because 15 years ago that was a very exclusive thing. Today a lot of people do this, a lot of people modified it, and my personal opinion is that a lot of agencies try to bring this or to present this in a very scientific way. I'm not sure why they do it. My feeling is a little bit that they think it then looks more valuable, more, how should I say, it makes them look more serious. And I personally think that's the wrong approach. I mean, first of all, we talked about it before, decompression is not a science. It's all based on experience and on mathematical models, but it's all a little bit guesswork. I mean, simply based on the fact that every person decompresses different, even on different days, based on hydration, age, fitness, general physical condition, etc., etc. I mean, how could this be scientific? So yeah, it's all experience based. And the other thing is, I mean, how many divers or how many people from the total amount of divers are scientists or have this scientific approach? I mean, from my opinion on how to teach decompression is teach it as simple and practical as possible, because the average guy from next door doesn't want to have the formula behind and all the scientific things. He just wants a tool that allows him to make a safe dive and get back to the surface in the safest way possible. And that's the beautiful thing on Ratio Deco. It is very simple, it is very easy to understand. It gives you this tool that you've been looking for to make it safe. And by bringing it into this scientific bubble and making it more complicated, I think you kind of ruin the idea of it. So there's a sharp line between what do you do in your office as an agency and do you talk to scientists, doctors, etc., to verify and hone the decompression strategy that you're teaching. And on the other hand, how do you bring these results to your customers and students? And the ISE philosophy clearly is to keep it as simple as possible and cut it down into a way that everybody understands and can work with. So that also means that you do not need a computer. And if you want to use a computer, you have a great tool to verify what the computer tells you, or you have a great backup. Because we've talked about this a lot of times in a lot of different videos, that we do not recommend dive computers because, first of all, I think you don't need it. But a lot of people feel better and safer if they use one, well, which is fine. But the problem is, as people are lazy in general, you start to rely on these things. A little bit the same story like electronic CCRs or MCCRs. And the thing is that if you use that computer and you start to rely on it, it becomes very hard to verify what the computer tells you. And if you are familiar with the ratio deco concept, then that's very simple, because it's a couple of numbers. I mean, I look at my maximum depth, my maximum time, and immediately I know roughly how much deco do I have to do. So if I look at my computer and it gives me a total different number, then something's obviously wrong. And that's this backup that you want to have. Again, this is the example I always like to use is if you go to the supermarket and you buy five items and you're at the cashier's desk and he gives you a number that's completely odd. I mean, you will realize it, because when you took these 5 items from the shelf and put it in your basket, you probably, in the back of your mind, just calculated roughly, okay, 5 items, I should be, I don't know, in the 20 euro range. So if the guy asks you 50, you're like, huh? Can't be. And that's the same thing that you want to achieve in your diving, in your decompression planning, or basically with all these numbers in diving, no matter if it's CNS or pulmonary or whatever. You just have to look at this number and get a natural feeling of this is possible and reasonable, or that's completely off. because that will give you a lot of safety and self-confidence, obviously. And therefore, that's a great tool. Yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea. There will be a follow-up video on this, where we'll talk a little bit of how you use this number, the total decompression time that the ratio Deco gives you, and what we do with it. How do you spread it over the stops? What's the concept behind? What's the ideas behind? And yeah, hope you liked that. If so, please give us a thumbs up. If you've not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Check out the Patreon site. That's where we discuss things in detail, especially on topics like that. And see you next Friday. Bye-bye.